That is information that helps Ukraine to defend itself against attacks, explains that it still has a duty to warn, but it does not provide targeting information for Russian targets. That means the US can warn Ukraine when intelligence shows the Russians are preparing to attack, but it can no longer provide targeting coordinates so Ukraine can strike first. Meanwhile, US President Trump said on Sunday that the United States is almost done with the suspension of intelligence sharing with Ukraine and expects good results from future talks with Ukrainian officials in Saudi Arabia. Reuters has reported this quote. Trump said, "We are almost done." CIA Director John Ratcliffe said on Wednesday that the US has stopped sharing intelligence with Ukraine, putting pressure on Zelenskyy to cooperate with Trump in holding peace talks with Russia. On Thursday, the US official will meet with Ukrainian delegation in Saudi Arabia in particular to determine whether Ukraine is ready to make concessions. The fate of the mineral deal between Washington and Kyiv also hung in the balance during the Jeddah talks. Trump expressed optimism about the talks, quote, "I believe we are going to make significant progress this week." Trump said he believed Ukraine would sign the deal, which Kyiv believes should include US security guarantees. Trump also said his administration was considering options for tariffs on Russia and that his administration officials were not concerned about military exercise involving Russia, China, and Iran. At the same time, US President Donald Trump said he is seriously considering imposing banking sanctions, other sanctions, and tariffs on Russia until a ceasefire deal and a peace agreement with Ukraine are reached. Quote, "Based on the fact that Russia is now absolutely beating Ukraine on the battlefield, I am seriously considering imposing wide-range banking sanctions and tariffs on Russia until a ceasefire and violent peace agreement are reached." Trump called on Russia and Ukraine to sit down at the negotiating table right now before it's too late. Meanwhile, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio assured his Polish counterpart Radosław Sikorski that no one threatened to disconnect Ukraine from Starlink. The US Secretary of State called Sikorski hints at the unreliability of billionaire Elon Musk's SpaceX as a service provider. Rubio took the opportunity to state that without the Starlink satellite connection, quote, "Ukraine would have lost the war a long time ago as the Russians would be on the border with Poland. No one threatened to disconnect Ukraine from Starlink." American billionaire, meanwhile, Musk said that he would never disconnect the Starlink network for the Ukrainian military, even if he disagrees with Ukrainian policy. Musk noted that without Starlink, Ukrainian communication lines would be collapsed and jammed, as the Russian communication lines will be jammed, quote, "We would never do such a thing and would not use it as a bargaining chip." Also, the United States will meet in Saudi Arabia this week not only with Ukrainian officials, but also with the Russian ones. The meeting will be held separately. This was reported by CNN. This week, separate meetings of senior Trump's administration officials with Russian and Ukrainian officials will be held in Saudi Arabia. It is also not known in which cities the meeting between US and Russian officials is to take place. The US-Ukrainian talks will be held in Jeddah. They will take place at a time when both countries are working to strengthen their relations after a quarrel in the Oval Office. Moreover, US Republican Senator Lindsey Graham said that he is concerned about the suspension of intelligence sharing between the US and Ukraine and the cessation of military aid supplies. Graham noted that until a potential ceasefire deal in the war unleashed by Russia, he would provide Ukraine with all necessary intelligence and military assistance, quote, "If we abandon Ukraine, it will be worse than in Afghanistan. That I do not think that Trump has any desire to do that." Meanwhile, the UK is advising Ukraine on negotiations with the United States ahead of a meeting between Ukrainian and American delegation in Saudi Arabia this week. This was reported by The Times. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer's National Security Advisor Jonathan Powell visited Ukraine over the weekend to advise President Zelenskyy before Ukrainian counterpart take part in negotiations with the United States on Tuesday. The publication writes that British are eager to avoid a repeat of the disastrous row with Trump in the Oval Office. Keir Starmer is also trying to convince Trump to resume intelligence sharing with Ukraine after the abrupt cessation of this process last week. Britain hopes that Trump will be persuaded to cancel his decision on intelligence sharing, which is seen as a more urgent and feasible demand rather than restoration of US aid. Over the weekend, Starmer spoke with the French President Emmanuel Macron and NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte about the need to resume intelligence sharing with Kyiv. Pavel also pressed the issue in a call with Mike Waltz, Trump's national security advisor. That's all for today. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and glory to Ukraine.